Hello there, a very warm welcome to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in and welcome back from Smart Means Business with, of course, our journalists there in the field, getting you to what's happening in the different business sectors. Now, of course, it's time for financial markets. And on this show, we get to analyze the performance of different stock exchanges. We get to look at the companies and how they're moving and how you can take advantage of some of the movements so you can invest and be able to get a return on your investment, and also for general knowledge as far as trading is concerned on different financial markets. My name is Anthony, and you can follow me on Twitter at Anthony Sebale, and you can as well get to our Smart24 TV handle, that is at Smart24 TV now. Now there we can get feedback and of course get to of course hear from you and what you're experiencing in as far as financial markets is concerned. And of course, the show is proudly brought to you by Altex East Africa. Altex East Africa now is the #1 brand when it comes to trading in fixed income securities in East Africa. Under Zabu, Altex is saying you can do something absolutely new if you only get to dial *292#. With this code, you can be able to buy and sell different fixed income products, and of course bond exchange traded funds, as well as Kenyan bonds and Ugandan bonds. The bonds range from different maturities, from 3 years to at least about 15 years in general, and with the biggest interest rates in the land. With Altex East Africa, we are saying you can do something new, bringing the market closer to you, and of course reducing and actually cutting out the hassle. Altex East Africa is regulated by the Capital Markets Authority. Now, looking at the Altex platform, in as far as the month of June, we are in a new month, and today is the second day of that new month. This is the kind of trading we are experiencing right now. Today, as I speak, the bonds that are listed include at least a 15.858% interest bond, and this was issued some time back. It's a Ugandan government bond with at least a maturity period of the next about 10 years, because the bond will be maturing in 2035. The bond currently has a bond number UGB 11351625, and then we do have another one at a 2034 maturity, and this is at 17.405%. And this as well is the Ugandan government bond on Altex. We have another bond that is at least maturing in 2033, and this is a 17.447%. This is a huge return comparing, of course, with the competitors in the market, and also given the fact that now you're accessing this fund through mobile money. So convenience and, of course, profitability coming together. When you look at the 2032 bond, it's having at least an interest of 17.025%, and the 2031 bond is at 15.257%, whereas the 2028 bond is at 16.109%. Please take advantage of Altex and be able to utilize this chance to be an investor in the safest equity, rather the safest investments that you can have in the financial markets. You remember the governments rarely and actually never default because they are entities that are separate from individuals. So despite the changes in government, despite the changes in leadership, government remains a body that is trusted and doesn't default. So when you lend to government, you're almost 100% sure that they will be able to pay back. Okay. Let's delve into the business of course today as we wind down the week. It's a Friday, and of course markets are going to be closed today till Monday. But let's have a look at the Thursday performances before moving on. Starting off with West Africa, in Ghana, at the Ghana Stock Exchange, the all-share index in Ghana dropped slightly by 0.31 points. This was closing off at least 2,501 points in the West African equity. Remember, Ghana Stock Exchange currently is one of those stock exchanges that are pretty active in West Africa, of course, coming behind Nigeria Stock Exchange. The exchange has over 38 listings, and on Thursday, at least 15 of these participated in trade. In as far as the trading was concerned, there were 2 gainers and just about 1 loser. 2 gainers were New Gold ETF at 18.06% and the Benso Oil Palm Plantation that added 0.79%. The only loser on the market was Societe Generale Ghana, which lost 1.67% of their price on Thursday. As far as the volumes are concerned, MTN Ghana really continue to rally the market. MTN Ghana is one of those biggest movers we still have on the Ghana Stock Exchange. And yes, it did so once again on Thursday by trading 54,524 shares. Other participants included Societe Generale, who came in, who doubled both as a loser and a participant at 18,563 shares. And EcoBank Transnational also lost, had about 5,127 shares that were recorded on Thursday. Regarding the performance of the indices, like I mentioned earlier, of course, the index dropped slightly. The loss from Societe Generale was quite really significant and led to the drop in the all-share index down to at least 2,510 points after at least 0.31 points were shed off that index. Away from Ghana, elsewhere in Africa, Johannesburg Stock Exchange, on the other hand, added at least 7,715 points on their all-share index. Generally, not the all-share index, of course, the benchmark index, which is the J203 for the top 203 equities on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Now, Johannesburg Stock Exchange has 421 listings currently on the stock exchange, and 321 of these participated in trade. Almost at least 80% of the equities did participate. The day, unfortunately, ended with 217 gainers and just 82 losers. Delta Property Funds led the gainers with at least about 15% appreciation in price, closing the day at 0.23 South African Rand per share. On the other hand, Labat Africa gained 14.29%, as well as E-Media Holdings and Novus Holdings coming in with at least 9.55% and 12.95% appreciation. Well, regarding the performance of the different stocks that lost value, the biggest loser for the day was Steinhoff International Holdings, who came out last with an end-of-day price, a depreciation of 11.9%. The Sizwe Platinum Company at least also lost 10.77%, whereas Choppies Enterprises at least shed off at least about 7.85% as well. The recordings, in as far as the volumes are concerned, the Pepco Holdings Company led the movers with at least about looking at 38.6 million shares that were recorded yesterday on Thursday. Old Mutual was another biggest mover at 16.4 million shares, and Fast Brand at least had 14.7 million shares that were recorded. Away from Johannesburg Stock Exchange, elsewhere in Africa, the Nairobi Securities Exchange, as we're going to see later on, appreciated slightly, 0.81 points upwards. We're going to see the details later. But Nigerian Stock Exchange as well appreciated 38.97 points. This is a pretty good picture of the continent on Thursday trades. The Nigeria Stock Exchange currently has their benchmark index at 55,800 points. And the the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, another really, really wonderful performer yesterday, added at least about 3,277 points on their benchmark index. After, of course, Africa, let's get to narrow down to our region here in East Africa and, of course, come back home to Uganda. In Uganda, we have 18 listings, and at least 8 of these are cross-listed, and 10 of them are domestic listings on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Well, Thursday trading saw just 3 equities participate in trade, and the day ended with 3 gainers and 5 losers, which did not, however, negatively impact on the all share index. Regardless, the all share index upwards. Now, the top gainers were led by Nation Media Group, who continues to rally the market with a 6.07% appreciation in price, closing off the day with 566.91 Ugandan shillings. Nation Media Group, as a cross listing, has not participated in trade on the Uganda Stock Exchange. Of course, however, the movement has been significant, but no changes in price, rather in terms of volumes traded, has been registered. East African Breweries Limited as well added 2.63% down to up to at least 4,187. And the Equity Bank Limited stock added 1.83%, closing off the day at 1,035.94 Ugandan shillings. Amongst the 5 losers on the market, Stanbic Bank Uganda lost the biggest amount by percentage, at least losing 0.23%, closing off the day at 25.94 Ugandan shillings. The Kenya Airways stock lost 0.04%, down to 104.14 Ugandan shillings per share. Whereas Centum Investments also lost 0.04%, down to 238.18 Ugandan shillings. KCB Group, likewise in line, dropped 0.04%, down to 866. Well, the significant losses there on KCB are becoming increasingly worrying. However, the stock hasn't also been able to participate in trade in the near past. Looking at Jubilee Holdings Limited stock, also at least dropped off 0.04%, down to at least 4,839 Ugandan shillings per share. Now, let's look at Stanbic Bank Uganda here and see if this is a significant loss or not. Now, Stanbic Bank Uganda holds currently at least 1.33 trillion Ugandan shillings worth of stock. The closing price on Thursday was at least 25.94 Ugandan shillings after a loss of 0.06 Ugandan shillings. Now, this is a slight drop from the previous price, which was 26 Ugandan shillings in the day earlier, and this was after trading 130,900 shares at 3.4 million Ugandan shillings. Well, seemingly this did not have much impact in the long run, but weekly performances on the stock currently indicate losses of 0.23%, and the 4-week performances or monthly performances at least indicate 0.19% has been dropped off. Stanbic Bank Uganda, however, is still significantly one of the best performers in year-to-date performances. In contrast, of course, with the different other time ranges, the company began the year with 21.0 Ugandan shillings. Today, at 25 shillings on average, the company's share price has appreciated at least by the biggest volume in terms of pricing with the year-to-date performance counter. Stanbic Bank Uganda also maintains the #1 spot as the biggest traded on stock on the Uganda Securities Exchange, with the last 3 months at least seeing about 240 million shares. Remember, according to the audited financial results of Stanbic Bank Uganda, the stock has appreciated in profit from over the past 3 years. Very successful appreciation from 243 billion in 2020 to at least 275 billion in 2021, and last year their latest has been a profit of 366 billion. Now that means also that the bank has grown in assets and in lending. As far as lending business is concerned, the bank is also amongst the leading banks in as far as lending is concerned. Well, this year they'll be issuing a dividend, and that will be communicated. And as per, of course, the schedule, we can always tell when the book closure date is, so you can know when to be able to get in, so you can be part of the bearers of the dividend or be part of the beneficiaries of that dividend that will be coming in. But generally speaking, we had three equities. Remember, we did have National Insurance Corporation rally the market, continue to rally the market with 1.5 million shares traded, and MTN Uganda at least having just 35 shares that were recorded. And in absolute terms, the volumes represented a decline of 41%, whereas the market's turnover at least declined 50% comparing Thursday to Wednesday trade. In aggregate, regarding the all-share index, it moved up at least 9.05 points, closing the day with 1,050 points. And this is a weekly gain now of 3.92%, implying our markets have generally improved in these past 7 days or in the past 5 days of trading, which is good news and probably a good start for a fresh week next Monday. However, of course, today is the last day. Things could change slightly. We don't know, depending on how, of course, the trading is going to be happening down at the Uganda Securities Exchange. But we do definitely hope for the very, very best. Across to Nairobi now. The Nairobi Securities Exchange also had a good day of trading, at least looking at their benchmark index, which is the Nairobi Securities Exchange All-Share Index. Now, in as far as trading is concerned, 45 out of the 65 listings participated in trade, and the day ended with 28 gainers and over 12 losers. BOC Kenya at least led the gainers with 9.76%. Appreciation in price, closing off the day at 90.0 Kenyan shillings. The Trans-Century stock at least gained 9.41%, and the Olympia Capital Holdings at least 9.09%. On the losing side, however, we had equities such as the Nairobi Business Ventures depreciating the most, with Nairobi Business Ventures losing 9.39%, down to at least 2.51 Kenyan shillings. The Housing Finance Group also lost at least 6.21%, and Nation Media Group, unlike on the Uganda Securities Exchange, lost on NSE at least about 5.04% of their value on their price. Bamburi Cement also lost 3.08%. Safaricom continued to be the top mover at 10.8 million shares that were traded on Thursday, and the Cooperative Bank of Kenya at least 2.32 million shares, whereas the Equity Group Holdings at least 90,500 shares, and Absa Bank Kenya 313,300 shares on the East African market. Regarding the performance of the NSE All-Share Index, the index soared. Number one, because of course, the big volume of gainers, 28 gainers, comparing that with, of course, 12 losers. Then also, the markets improved slightly by the performance of Safaricom and a couple of other stocks that have been losing in the recent few weeks. And due to their improvement, that has contributed now to the current 103.69 points on the all-share index. Let's go to the United States briefly as we close the day. Now, the United States now is under at least limited pressure, slightly lifting off the pressure that has been on the president and, of course, the Congress to decide on the debt ceiling, the fate of the debt ceiling. The Senate yesterday voted to approve the bill that raised the debt ceiling, or that raises the debt ceiling for 2 more years, sending the legislation to President Joe Biden's desk just days before the U.S. potentially runs out of cash to run its business. Now, the final count was at least 63 to 36, and there were 17 Republicans, or as opposed to at least about 4 Democrats who voted against of course, the raising of that debt ceiling. The House approved the legislation 314 and 117 on Wednesday night. This, of course, came to the relaxation of the nerves of investors that were worried that the United States was going to default on its loan. Currently, the debt stock of the United States stands at 31.38 trillion, and the debt ceiling was at 31 trillion. That means they had already almost crossed actually the line of the debt ceiling of the United States. Now, with the postponement to 2 years, will the United States be able to sustain this debt in the long run? Of course, that and more is the questions that investors are currently having. Now, debt ceiling issues are very, very vital to investment because they influence a lot in the economy. They influence the sustainability of the economy. They influence the macroeconomic movements. And that, of course, also affects especially the volatile markets, like including the stock market, including the cryptocurrency and the like. Now, with the extension, of course, there is a little bit of relaxation, but this will also depend on whether or not the president approves that as well to be passed as a law. And of course, that will change a lot of things. And of course, we will be following and giving you the updates as they do unfold. That's it, my friend. Thank you so much for tuning in and for watching Smart 24 TV. Remember to check out Altex East Africa. With Altex East Africa, you have Zabu with you. You know you can invest with your phone. Under Zabu, we have, of course, access now to the markets, the Treasury Board markets in Kenya, in Uganda, and in Tanzania. You can simply dial *292# to be able to register and be able to buy or sell and also learn more about Zabu products. Altex is regulated by the Capital Markets Authority and opens their doors at exactly 8 a.m. and closes at 3 p.m. East African Standard Time. With Zabu under Altex, you can do something new. Of course, that's it from us today. The Financial Markets Desk will be back on Monday to get you up to speed with what will be happening on, the new week, and of course, with what will have happened today as we, of course, see what the trading is going to be like by the end of the day. Remember to follow us on Twitter at Smart24TV now, and my personal handle at Anthony Sabale rather. And of course, keep tuned on Smart24 TV. A lot more business is coming your way. Bye for now. Have a good weekend.